Hello everyone, welcome back to the next reunion episode on Autistic Assemble. It's going to be really cool because it's all about having a reunion, and I think it's really cool for other people to get to know each other maybe. Other than everyone knows me, so they can get to know each other as well. So before we go, I'm going to get everyone to introduce themselves. I'm going to go in the order that it says on my screen. So sorry if you're last or but Emmy, I'm going to start with you because you're first.
Thank you. So my name is Emmy Flew. I am a cartoonist and artist with autism. I was diagnosed when I was 3 years old. I am a blogger. I have my blog called the Autistic Animator's Desk. I started when I was 24 since 2019. My art is focused on animation. I'm trying to get into a career of animation, but I'm more of I'm an illustrator. I can do paintings, and I'm also an advocate for the autism community as well, for the disability community.
Yeah, it's great to have you on again. I mean you've done this a couple of times, so you kind of used to it, aren't you? So yeah, it's great that you do all your drawings and stuff, and you keep doing it. Actually, speaking of drawing, which I'll speak that after I heard from Beatriz because I got something to share with that I'd like to speak about. But thanks, Emmy. Or Michael, if you were to do it, your introduction, please.
Absolutely, Mason. So hello, everybody. I am Michael Guerrieri. I am 27 years old. I am also an artist, but I am an actor. I'm an autistic actor. I've been acting for almost 2 decades, and I am currently in rehearsal for a show that's going to be put on in June. It's called MAME, for anybody out there who's into theater and or know the show. It's going to be very fun, and I'm glad that I can return and chat with other autistic people.
So with that show, what is the what's it about, Michael? The show that you're going to be doing.
Well, MAME is set in the 1920s. It is about somewhat of aristocratic woman who finds the joy in life in any situation, whether she's in the big city of New York or if she's in the southern United States, and her personality encapsulates not encapsulates, her personality is infectious, meaning everyone else is just drawn into the aura that she presents.
Okay.
So it's a very and there's a lot of dancing, so I'm gonna get quite the workout during the show. But yeah, it's gonna be fun.
Yeah, I hope you have a good time. I hope it's really fun. Because dancing is fun. I saw a dancing video this morning as soon as I woke up. So yeah, it is good. It is good fun. I might have spoke this when our episode when I did drama at school, and I did a dance with someone, and I had no clue how to do it because it was old school, like in the old days where you had to dance like put your left foot left or other foot right. And I was getting taught how to dance, so it is it's good fun. So thanks, Michael. I'm glad you're back again, and I look forward to hearing from more throughout the evening. Well, evening for me, maybe afternoon for you. Beatriz, would you mind doing an introduction for you? You don't have to take yourself on mute though. I still can't hear you. Yeah, but you're not on mute. I can hear you now.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, hear you now.
Here we go again. I'm Beatriz. I'm 26 years old. I'm from Chile. I'm a filmmaker, but right now I'm studying to be a teacher because I was diagnosed last year, and After a lot of time reflecting about my experience at school and university, I wanted to change the system to give autistic, well, not just autistic kids, but every neurodivergent an opportunity to be an equal, to have the same opportunities as neurotypical kids.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, I think that's like I said before. I think it's really good that you're doing that, because it makes people better. Like if you have more autistic teachers out there, who understand people better, because you
Yeah.
can all we have a lot of people that work in let's say with autism people, maybe autism kids, but it just makes it easier, and I guess for them actually easier if you say to them, I'm autistic too, and like you can kind of relate. So yeah, I think that's really good that you're doing that, Beatriz. Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, it's glad to have you back as well. And with Emmy, the thing that I was actually saying is today I found out like with Emmy and Beatrice, we all have a common interest in Doctor Who. I don't know if anyone else here likes that as well, but something come today on the actual website where you get to it. It's a pity from the age range because it says 9 to 15 years old. So say what you've got to do is draw a picture of anything related to the show, and you submit it, and then you're in this like raffle, and then one gets picked to actually go on the set of Doctor Who, go to the new TARDIS, go and see the new sonic screwdriver. But the only downfall is it's from 9 years old to 15. If you can't do it over age, which is really sad and annoying. But it is not just Doctor Who primarily though. It's linked in with another like CBBC in the UK, so that's for kids. So that is the whole reason behind that. But I just thought I'd share that with you guys because you both like drawings and Disney and Doctor Who. So I thought, yeah, it's a pity. But I think I'm going to still do a drawing and see if I get in there. Because it's worth a shot. But yeah, Aaron, if you're there, would you mind just doing your introduction again? Just your introduction.
Sure. Michael, that's really cool. But the I've got a question for. I was wondering. I'll ask you afterward. But I was just wondering what other shows you've been on. That's pretty cool. I've got my uncles in the film industry, and I've got other friends that were in the film industry, and yeah. So my introduction. So I am Aaron Boma. I'm from Woodstock, New Brunswick, Canada. I serve as the military historian and military analyst for the Carleton County area in Woodstock, New Brunswick. I'm a war historian, military analyst, and also scratch military model builder. I build everything just looking at pictures, tanks, aircraft, you name it. I've got a lot of different stuff that I build. And so this is some of the work I do here. And that's some of my work. Hold on, I just got somebody here. Can I finish my introduction in just a minute?
Yeah,
give me a second.
We'll come back to you. We'll come back to you.
Hi, Craig.
Right. So as we're waiting for Aaron to do an introduction, we're not going to stop and just wait. We'll continue. I'm gonna say. I asked this actually question yesterday, but I thought I'll ask it again because we've got Michael here who does drama, and everyone here likes filmed and television here. So I thought I'm going to ask this question again. So I might even ask you, Michael, on our episode. But do you think does anyone else can say anything as well onto this? Within acting and films and being autistic, do you think it's okay for people not to be autistic to act as an autistic person in something, or do you think it has to be an autistic person that acts an autistic character?
Well, from my point of view, it's essential for autistic people to be represented in all forms of the arts, not, like film, theater, TV. Like, authentic representation goes a long way. With that being said, however, it's not enough to just have us represented on the stage or on the screen. It's also in the stories being told about us. Meaning, there's a lot that goes into creating and portraying an autistic or disabled character in a musical, a play, or a TV show or a film. So it's essential that a lot of filmmakers and a lot of playwrights and librettists and everybody, storytellers, really pay attention to what autistic experiences are really like from the perspectives of autistic people, rather than listening to those who have been speaking over us for years to get a better gauge of what being an autistic person is like. Because no two autistic people are the same. And I want to stress that over and over again. No two autistic people are the same. And I stress that so much because, there's a lot of stigma that still goes around about autism itself and about autistic people.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree.
So, listening.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. In my point of view, I think well, it should be important for every film crew or any author or anything related to a representation of autism to have for example, someone there to take the reference. Like, for example, it would be amazing if every or most films could have autistic actors or actresses. But in the case they don't, they should have always someone who's autistic within the crew. Because one thing is the acting, and the other thing is where do you take that story? How do you know this information about autism? And those people are mostly the script writers, the directors, and everyone who's like who's building this universe, these characters. And there's something very important that, for example, I don't know if all of you saw or know about the show A Kind of Spark.
Yeah.
Which is
Never heard of that one, actually.
The story about an autistic girl called Addie who lives in Scotland, and she wants to create this memorial for the witches who were killed there. And she starts finding this link between witches and autism. And it's amazing because you can see, the author is autistic, and she has this hero who is autistic. And the author mentions that, well, in the world of books, you don't have many autistic authors. And because of that, all of the time, every time you have an autistic character, is usually a secondary character or someone in the background. It's like we don't matter. So in that way, I think it's important to give this spotlight to autistic characters, not leaving them in the background. Because that's how you will know how they see things, not just how they look outside, but inside. Because that's what the camera, the art department does. They show you our inner world. like outside in what you see in the image.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I've heard
Yeah.
of that. Yeah.
And I actually touched base a little bit on that on an Instagram post, Mason. I remember speaking to you about this on our episode about, you know, it's not just, you know, enough to have us represented like on the screen or on the stage. There's a lot of people that want to work behind the scenes, autistic people that want to work behind the scenes, and that's crucial as well as
yeah.
as Beatriz mentioned.
Yeah.
Because without that influence, without that without those crucial pieces of information, but from those people who have lived experiences as autistic people, more times than not, you're just going to have a project that's going to emulate similar characteristics like Sia's movie called Music, if any one of you have heard about the situation regarding that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that okay, it's maybe okay that an actor who's not autistic can maybe portray an autistic person, but the thing is, if the person did the homework, like, did you meet autistic people? Do you understand what it means to be autistic? Do you know, I don't know, like the different topics about autism? For example, I was watching Woo Young Woo, which is the story about this autonomous who's autistic, and she's excellent. I think that there's like maybe not like a very perfect representation about autism, but at least I could see that they cared about like really showing what's happening inside of us, like not trying to use stereotypes to portray us. So in that way, I think that you can use neurotypical actors, but they have to understand, like they have to be in our shoes. Like I think that's the important thing about representation with neurotypical people, like the experience of learning, of understanding and tolerating others.
Yes. I completely agree. Beatrice. Aaron, I'm gonna let you do your intro. Because the intro.
Sorry, my apologies. I had somebody come up and one of my neighbors had, and he left. I couldn't get a hold. Couldn't reach him in time before he left. So yes, like I was saying, yes, military historian analyst, and I'm building a military museum, and this is some of my work. I'm a scratch model builder. I build tanks, aircraft, howitzer models, rifles, all made out of wood from scratch. That's some of my stuff there. But I'm an autism advocate. I've been, I helped develop the Canadian National Autism Strategy. I was helping on the leadership of that, the assembly of that. What is it called? The assessment. And I helped develop the York University Autism Mental Health Guide. It's a guide for autistic people on the spectrum that have been struggling with from mental health issues. It's a guide that can help. A lot of us are turned away from mental health issue, from mental health supports, and I've been involved with a lot of stuff, like in Canada, a lot of initiatives, government initiatives and stuff like that with autism, and so also have family in the film industry. So I was going to ask Michael, what other shows have you been on? That's really cool. Like anything like The Good Doctor. I do know one of the developers of The Good Doctor, and I know that speaking of exactly what you guys were talking about, the problem is when you have a neurotypical person displaying a person with autism, like The Good Doctor they're displaying it in a very typical kind of stereotyped way, and it's kind of really kind of hard. Yeah, and so just saying that, just talking about that alone, it is hard. It is kind of difficult to get people to understand, like, all of us have the same kind of frustrations and issues regarding that. Yeah.
Well, Beatrice brought up a good point about, neurotypical people, doing the homework and really studying and gaining authentic information from the perspectives of autistic people, rather than just basing their performances and their information that they receive based on like stereotypes and stigmas.
Right.
And like you said, that's very hard to do. So and that's why I said, no two autistic people are the same, because the spectrum is so infinite. Like, autistic
Yes.
people can experience the world differently, sometimes every second. Like, our autistic traits, like, can be strong in one point, but then the next second, something happens, and then something else, like another trait, grows stronger, and then the other one like diminishes. So that's that kind of. So I get, Beatrice, what you mentioned about, neurotypical people really doing the homework and studying and making sure that the information that they gauge in is authentic and is as close to a true representation of autistic people as to what autistic people experience themselves. But in the same thing, in that same sentence, I did a study of that myself about, autistic actors and representation in theater. 95% of disability specific roles across the theater industry are given to non-disabled performers. And that's a problem. Like,
Yeah.
and here's the thing, like, that's the thing, like, if the industry itself has no problem casting non-disabled performers in disability specific roles, what's the problem with, having disabled actors and performers and thespians being cast in non-disability specific roles? You know what I'm saying? It kind of should work both ways.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny because theater and cinema has the responsibility of showing an experience. They are, even if it's a fiction or something based in a true story, you're showing a reality, a kind of reality. It's a representation, and actors basically their work is to incarnate a certain thing, like a kind of person. Like, you're not going to maybe show, I don't know, Napoleon and try to portray him in a way that he's not. Maybe you can do it if the film like tries to make something experimental, but it's a representation of an experience and something real. And if you don't like include autistic people or other disabilities, then you're not really doing your job right. Like, if you're going to represent
Right.
reality, you have, like, you need actors from every kind, everywhere, any place.
Something I also found out recently. You've all heard of the show The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime?
Yeah, I've
Have
heard
you
of
heard
it.
of that?
I've
And
heard of it.
I totally agree with that, because
Oh, go ahead, Aaron.
thanks. So yeah, there is a problem where, but that's the same, what you're dealing with, the same problem there in the film industry or everywhere else is also in every theater of workplace because we are totally overlooked in the workplace as well. We're totally overlooked, certainly in the health sector when we need mental health problems in the province of New Brunswick, where I live in Canada, and a lot of other places, provinces, or in a lot of other countries in the world. A lot of us are turned away from accessing certain things. But talking about the workplace directly, we're overlooked, and sometimes people that don't know much about autism, they just, you know, if we say in the interview that we have it, we are either, in a sense, sometimes we're overlooked for a lot of different operations, and even if we do well, we're overlooked for promotions, and we're overlooked for the other person that's neurotypical will get the promotion instead of somebody that has done the job just as well or better than neurotypical person, right? It just if that coincides with kind of what we're talking about, it's what you're dealing with in that area as far as the film industry, you're dealing with that in very similar in so many other areas, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And another thing that I would add on to that, Aaron, is if we do like get the job and we're constantly working, because I've experienced this myself. I'm not just an actor. I work in a grocery store very close to home. And there are days when I was completely burnt. There were weeks where there have been times when I've worked like 7 days a week over like maybe sometimes close to 60 hours, and I would just get completely burned out. But then it's like these workplaces need to have like accessible means of mental health, like mental health accessibility for disabled and autistic workers, to make sure that we are we're working at our best, we are in a good place, we are not just physically but in a mentally good place as well. Oh Jesus. And yeah, if you follow along, like, guys, with like what I'm saying.
Oh yeah,
like
I've been thinking about this topic a lot this week, because actually I've been in university where there's something going on between like the class. I'm studying to be a teacher, and before entering to university, I was thinking that maybe I would feel more comfortable about autism in general, because I was going to be surrounded with future teachers who I thought they were supposed to be like people who knew more things than the teachers we had when we were growing up. But the thing is that they don't. Even the teachers who are teaching me that are kind of young, they don't know anything about autism. And this has been causing different troubles for me and other neurodivergent friends. And I was talking to a psychologist about this in university, and she also gave me like a response that wasn't very autistic friendly. And in a class, we were like, in a history class, we were learning about like education, the history of education, and something rang a bell inside of me. Like, I'm going to like go into a very long story to explain this, but I want to be like clear about this, like how I feel about why people are like excluding us, even in a time where we're supposed to be having like a lot of more help. But for example, here in Chile, after we became an independent country, and we didn't have schools, so the government said, okay, we need a school to teach people how to be good like Chileans. and give them like the values of a good Chilean. And then I thought, like, what kind of education was there before we became independent? And I was thinking about the Middle Ages, where the church was in charge. And basically every problem that we have today about, I know, like rights for people in the like gay people or Black people or disabled people, they all come from like that period where the church was in charge. And autism people, as well as other disabled people were seen as like they were, I know, demons, witches, even changeling childs. And that's
And funny thing, also happens a lot in the film industry, where it's this constant misrepresentation of, you know, disabled people as, you know, protagonists, punchlines, pity projects. You know, that's very similar to what I hear about, you know, the performing arts industry as a whole as well.
Yeah, and if you pay a little attention to how we're treating each other, I mean, the story repeats itself. I mean, okay, we have people thinking we're demons, then witches, then changeling childs, and then you go to like this century and you see mothers treating their autistic children like changeling childs, like, oh, autism took my child. Like when people said, oh, the fairies took my child and turned him into a changeling child. And they do the same thing as they did with the changeling childs. They start abusing them. They start blaming their kids about, like, I don't know, like, you're ruining my life. I don't have friends anymore. You're taking all of my money. And I'm shocked. Like, we haven't changed anything. And that happened like how many years ago? Like, I know it's very frustrating to think about that. We haven't changed from the Middle Ages. And for example, something that shocked me a lot, because I've been like making stories to inform my friends in university about autism, and I was writing about Autism Speaks, and I rewatched the commercials that they did, and there was this one that was, I think it's Autism Every Day. And there's a
with
mother.
the woman who talked about, you know, her daughter and how she wanted to
Yes.
drive her car off a bridge. Like,
Yes. Like you see the mother, and the kid is behind her listening while she's saying, okay, I wanted to kill my child, but I didn't, because I wanted to protect my normal child. While the
so
child
in essence, if that woman didn't have other children and her autistic daughter was her only child, she would have more than likely done it.
Exactly.
She would have more than likely fallen through with what she just said.
Yes, and you can see this again in the other commercial, which is I am
actually he's just
Oh,
yes,
go ahead, Aaron.
And I will say it's okay. I just want to say this has actually tragically come true in numerous cases in the United States, as well as other countries around the world, including Canada, where actually parents have actually killed their children that were autistic, and then either killed themselves or or not. But it has actually come true in multiple cases, and it is, sorry to say, it is actually it's very sad. Of course,
Yeah. Actually,
it's very sad, but it's unfortunately, yeah.
I remember when doing the research, like, okay, they published that video, I think around 2006, and like one or a few months later of them publishing it, a woman killed her daughter, autistic daughter, in the park. And when you read the newspaper,
it says, you know, does
the
it
way
usually
they write
say like is usually paint, you know, the murder as, you know,
The victim.
as like as the victim. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
like I think they wrote like something like, well, we understand that woman because we've like everyone has been in that position of having to like carry that burden of someone who's disabled. Like you're actually validating that behavior of killing childs because of something that has been existing since the day like we appeared on Earth. It's so weird to me, and it's not only that of the changelings, but it's something very Nazi to me. Like we haven't even changed to what happened in the Second World War. Like the genetic researches that they do to find a cure for autism. Like if you do that, I mean, I respect abortion. I respect it because I know
exactly,
when to,
yeah,
I know when to say like you can do it because there are many risks, like you can be in danger, someone who violated you like left you
exactly,
with a
Beatrice.
baby or
Yeah,
something. But if you open this door about giving the choice of abortion because your baby has 80% of being autistic, it feels like, I mean, it opens the door for the government to force you to have an abortion, and that is like cleaning the world from autistic, which is like what Hitler did of wanting to clear the world of Jews, gay people, black people,
black people.
and
Mhm.
disabled people, like building this Aryan race.
Yes,
And that's really
Yep.
I just wanted to
Yep,
add into
Aaron,
that.
yeah. Aaron, I was about to say, like, that must be your area of like expertise, since you're
Yeah.
fond of war history.
Yes, this is so. I mean, there's a lot of parallels between Autism Speaks and stuff that's. Yes, I can understand parallels between the Nazis, but the sense is with the Nazis and with Hitler and Himmler and all them, and the final solution. It was so acute. The problem is, unfortunately, Autism Speaks is still doing this research, and they're still doing this kind of, and that's where the funding goes. But they're kind of very subtle about it. So even though they're still doing it, they're more subtle about it, and unfortunately, it's kind of gone behind the scenes. And because they know that it gets bad rap, and they know, but they still have to be called out on it. They still have to be called out on you know the autism is not, we don't want to be cured. It can't be cured. It's not something that is a disorder you're born with. It's this kind of research has continued, and they unfortunately, like for places such as the Canadian Autism Spectrum Alliance, the CASDA, like one of the pushes for the national strategy, which I was helping develop. Unfortunately, they're like Autism Speaks United States is the regular one, and then there's Autism Speaks Canada, and they have put a lot of money, unfortunately, into they're one of the big sponsors for the CASDA thing, and that's why a lot of autistic people don't trust them, and I don't trust them. I don't like them either. It's just that's the problem, is these people. Sorry,
And
these people
you know,
can't be trusted.
and you know, and a lot of, that's why I went on recently about I went on to Autism Speaks' website, and I see like all the changes they made in their mission statement. But the problem is, you know, they still have the, you know, the Light It Up Blue campaign, which is, you know, completely infantilizing and gender exclusive. And they also have the puzzle piece, which has a history steeped in ableism. The puzzle piece symbol for autistic people, you know.
Yeah, and the fact that
It's
I think there in the puzzle piece, like the hint that you can see that they haven't changed. Because yes, I mean, they have a logo, which before it was a completely blue puzzle piece. But now they kind of changed it to like blue with a bit of red. But like, it's still blue. You're still like saying that autism just happens to boys and not to women. And you're still saying that autism is a puzzling condition where someone is missing a part of them. And like, it's really silly. Like, how can you really trust that? And I remember seeing, like, trying to find the video for today's post about I am autistic, I think was that video that I was searching, but they didn't had it uploaded, and I found this like apologize. They apologized, but they didn't really said why they were apologizing. Like, it was just something superficial, like just to tell people like, yeah, you know what, yeah, I'm sorry, like, but why are you sorry? What did you do? They didn't said what they did in that, in what they wrote. So they really, like, it's there, you can see that they haven't changed.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think they're still like using shock therapy to treat autistic kids.
Oh, the Judge Rotenberg Center. Yep. I know that place.
And it's not just there, but in Canada too. The situation with Autism Speaks is unfortunately, even in Canada, they they still push for the electroshock therapy, and that stuff is from the 50s. If you can imagine, if historically, you and Cameron of the Montreal Institute, that was the MK Ultra program that actually involved that from the CIA, and it was involving the CIA, and this was stuff that they were testing in the 50s, and they're still using that. They're still trying to push for certain things like that today, and I'm like, what the heck are you guys doing? And it's like, it's that, and it's also there's other pseudoscience stuff that's they also been trying to, the other people have been trying to do too, and that's like dilution, or not dilution, diluted, what is it, diluted materials, bleach, that parents have been doing. But that's not necessarily them. That I don't know if they wouldn't be doing that, but there's also people have been diluting their kids with like bleach to try to, and it said, and some of them said it worked. I was like, what? These, right? It's not just bad science, it's also pseudoscience.
Yeah, I don't know if you like have know about this. Like, I'm really asking this, but I was aware that lobotomy was still like being used until the 80s, but I think they also used that for autistic people. I think. I don't know if you know something about that.
But yeah, yeah, lobotomy. Yes, I've heard of different things. Yes. And I mean, there's a lot of things that this is why autistic people don't, like to sometimes just don't like to be part of the neurotypical world. I can see why, is that they're always trying to change us, right? But I mean, we have to make the most of the neurotypical world. We have to push for, still is, unfortunately, I still think it's a few years away for getting done. But I mean, it's working now, but we still got a long way to go, guys.
Yep,
I mean,
this is in the way I see it going at its current pace now. It's going to take like generations to get to a place where autistic and disabled people will be comfortable enough to fully express themselves as who we are individually, without fear of being, persecuted or being, chastised,
Yeah.
Yeah,
just for being
Mhm.
ourselves. You know what I mean?
I think that, I mean, it's true. And most people think that solution to that is to go to the streets and start like protesting. But I believe, okay, it can be helpful. I mean, it's good for
Yeah,
you to
protests are
speak your
helpful, but
voice.
that's
But the thing is that we're under this kind of education that's being like here ever since the Middle Age, like we said before. And I think that I believe that the solution is to start with the kids, because I mean, education, like give representation spaces for everyone, like
Yeah.
teach kids that autism is not a disease, that that for example that human is something that is fluid, love is fluid, and we have to start breaking these rules that neurotypical people created, that the church created.
Yeah.
Because before the church, we were basically free. There was not, before the concept of property, we didn't have problems like we have between women and men. It was even more equal before, but something along the way changed things, and we have to regain that freedom by educating and giving space for everyone, not just us, but every minority, because we have a bunch of people who are minority. How can that be happening right now, after we had many wars, many deaths, many things that were tragic, and we're still making mistakes, and still have people who say like, okay, but we can do nothing about it, just go with the flow. Like, no, that's
we're,
wrong.
yeah, I get it. We're tired of, waiting. We're tired of, sitting on the sidelines waiting for something to happen. You know what I mean? Because, that's just how I see it personally. Like, if you guys don't mind, me sharing a lived experience for a little bit.
Yeah.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Recently I saw a post on Instagram of a SpongeBob meme that has SpongeBob holding up like a protesting poster sign that says Krabs is an insert R slur here. And I was just so filled with rage that, this, something like that is on Instagram without repercussion. And I decided to, take action. I was not going to sit on the sidelines and be quiet about this. I was going to let that person know what, you're hurting not just autistic people, you're hurting the entire disabled community, putting this media out there that uses this horrible slur as a means of being funny, as, a joke. And, we're not, as I said before, we're not punchlines. We are not the butt of jokes. We are real human beings. We are real people. And I just didn't hold back. I told this person to take that post down and to go and read a post that I created on Instagram about why the R slur is as bad as it is and why I believe the autistic community should reclaim it. And I was met constantly with gaslighting responses, as like, I get where you're coming from, but it's not as bad as you say it is. And I was constantly delegitimized of my lived experiences of being subject to use of the R slur. And, I at
So
that
what
point,
did
I was
it
like,
say? What did it exactly say again, the meme? I didn't get all of it, what you said.
it was a SpongeBob meme. it was a SpongeBob meme on Instagram.
Right. And it said exactly, that's what I missed.
And it said, and it had SpongeBob hold up a poster saying that Krabs is an R slur.
Oh, right. 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 I mean, right.
And that just put me over the edge. And a lot of people really came at me for trying to educate this person as to why the R slur is as bad as it is, and to point him in a direction to where he can be educated further via a post that I created about the slur. And like it just, I just had enough after a few days of getting all that backlash, and I just had to, take a break from social media as a whole, because I didn't want to deal with those people if they weren't gonna willfully, listen to what an autistic person has to say about that word. Then why bother trying to explain myself any further? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, completely.
Yeah,
Yeah, sometimes it's very hard to like
exactly.
exist in this society. And like, at least for me, I mean, it really shocked me to hear that, because like it makes me think of what the psychologist of the university told me about how we couldn't change anything anymore, because that would be being like maybe like a utopia, maybe like change is not possible. And I just walked out of her office, looked at all the people in the university, and was like, I can't do anything. Like, there's this, like, all these people here, and I can't, like, change their minds. How can I do that with, like, how am I going to expect to do that as a teacher then later on? Like, it kind of made me feel scared of the future. And that's not right. Like, I think it's really hard to talk with people of our age or even older about this. And that's why I think maybe educating the young generations can be maybe not the fast solution, but it can, I see like a possibility of seeing an actual change through the years that will come. Because, I mean, for example, Michel Petit said that education is not only in school. First, we were educated by our parents, and then we go to school. If the parents fail, the teachers gain extra like responsibility to educate the child. And we're learning like ever since we were in the womb, and like we need to learn to read reality. And if we're every day looking for ours, the kids, we really have the power to show them how to read the world, how to read reality, how to read different perspectives. And I believe that I kind of forgot what I was going to say, but like education really has the power to change the world. I believe that. That's why I got into university to learn it. Because if someone does not believe, like have you gone to school and felt like your teachers didn't believe in you, like they didn't have faith in you? We all do. But what if a teacher does have faith in you and tries to make the space in school a safe place? Then the kid will think like, wow, this is what I need. And he will try to replicate that safe space outside of school. And then maybe that will help to make other people realize that this is what we need. It's kind of like that film, I forgot the name, but it's with the kid of that kid who sees dead people. I forgot the name, but it's about a kid who has this class project where he chooses 3 people and makes a favor for each one of them, and then that person has to make a favor for other 3 people, and so on, until you create this chain of favors. I think that was the name. I think that was the name of the film. But I think if we can do that, but with the concept of tolerance and creating a safe space for everyone, then I think that we can make it possible. We can change the mind of everyone. I mean, maybe we will still have like people who will think otherwise, because, you know, we have this thing about generations who have their own mindset, and they start to change when they start dying and we start growing, and that's the cycle of life. So if we can like teach kids, then it's like planting a tree. You will start watering it, and then it will start growing in time until we have this tree of like tolerance and safety. And I think that will be the time when we'll be able to accept the fact that we're all human and that we're all equal in.
Yeah.
And just want to
Definitely.
add in, there's the narratives, right, that are very harmful to us, such as it just, even from parents of autistic children, when they say, you know, when we're saying, yes, we need we need autism specific supports, and then when this person says, well, if you have autism specific supports, you're going to have specific supports for every disability. I didn't say every disability. I said we need that for autistic people, right? But you get what I'm saying? You get how ableist that is, though?
Yeah. But
Yeah.
that is definitely like I think I spoke to a few people, but when me and Michael did our episode, we did speak about that. We spoke about like changing this ableist kind of view on things, and say we need support needs for people who have autism, who are autistic, rather than things that can, certain terms that can be dangerous, come across dangerous, which like growing up you don't really know, you just go along with it, which is why exactly what Beatriz is saying, teach people what autism is in schools, because a lot of us like, you won't understand if you're like 5 or 6. I'm talking about when you're a little bit older in school, maybe the latter years of it, maybe 5, year 6, when you have a better understanding and maybe a bit more grown up, I think, but yeah, definitely. But with just going back to what Aaron said earlier about the good doctor, I completely agree with what you were saying with that, because it's really hard, because I when watching The Good Doctor, I watched it a couple of years ago, and they do have some good storylines about certain things, like it may not be autism. Like, we know Sean Murphy is portraying an autistic person, but I'm talking about different things. So like they had a COVID storyline. They had other storylines about treating patients with actual illnesses. But I think the way Sean is portrayed is a bit it isn't great. it can, if you're autistic and you're watching this, you could feel like that's been a little bit offensive the way Sean Murphy is acting and portraying an autistic person. But yeah, I think it like there are worse programs out there, I would say. But The Good Doctor has some bad things in it. But the show you're talking about, Beatrice, it's a Spark. I haven't watched that, but I've seen it. I've seen like the trailer and everything, and it looks really good. And that looks like one of the actually good things in a while that autistic representations actually come in good in that.
Yeah, and the thing is that, for example, that show, as well as William Wu, they use like concepts about autism that are used within the community and that most people don't know about. Like, for example, they show like burnout. They show why it happens. They show how we try to like feel better after it. They talk about, for example, the fact that Asperger is no longer a diagnosis. It's not real. They talk about, for example, when they talk about how autistic people are different from each other. And things like that. And that's amazing. That's what we need. Like, we need actual information about autism. And that's what will make a show great and a representation great, even if there's a neurotypical, like if they do the homework, like we said, that's going to make us feel like heard, make us feel like we're there, we're not part of the background anymore. And people will learn about what autism really is, which is the importance of
I think that's really good. It is on my things list to watch actually, because I've said my thoughts on there was a documentary about Chris Packham with picking autistic people, which like on that documentary I thought it was I'd rather have a series about an autist like It's a Spark, for example, than picking autistic people over other autistic people. I think that can be quite upsetting to people not picked. But I just want to come across the thing that I experienced this month. Well, I didn't experience myself, but I just saw it and I just expressed my views on it. Like it was the same last year. Last year I came across a post where it was saying autism is a disease, and I wrote my reply to them and saying it's not, and they had this whole starter back saying how to cure autism and stuff like that. But this year, I saw something where it's a person that was quite disillusional, really, about sharing different posts about being autistic and neurodivergent, and saying about actually saying because a lot of autistic people and neurodivergent people get told they're naughty, don't they? It's a common term that comes across that you're naughty because you're autistic. And then on this certain post, it said lots of people who are on the spectrum don't like being labelled like naughty, but they're fine to be labelled ADD, ADHD, those kind of labels, which I thought that was really harmful. And that wasn't the only one I came across. There was a few that was just being really harmful to SEND parents as well. And yeah, I just come across that, and I wrote my response to actually the person who created it, and I said, hopefully you will read my response. Probably won't, because it's really annoying when you get people like that who actually think autism is a bad thing and you need things to cure it and stuff like that. So I wrote my response. I saw a couple of people did an actual video, which is actually better than doing a post. But yeah, I think when you respond to these things, you just hope people see it, and this is why we do things like this, to educate people around different terms that maybe are new now. You mentioned about Asperger's and like Autism Speaks, that they're really good. But the thing with Autism Speaks is, do you think like every year I think every time this year we come across Autism Speaks, don't we? Whether we like it or not, Autism Speaks is there. It's always talked about. It's the amount of years this has gone on. It's gone on for quite a few years, I think. The Autism Speak kind of conversation. And it's quite odd how many times, how lots of people in the community talk about it. We talk about the views that we've said today. We've said on probably our episodes that we've done together separately, and nothing. They're still doing the same. It's crazy, really, isn't it, to think about it? The amount of times we talk about it and nothing's done. It's just they just keep it the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy.
I remember.
Actually, was about to say, Emmy's been I feel like Emmy's been
Emmy,
kind of excluded out in these conversations. So I feel like
Oh,
it's time
no,
that we
no,
give
I'm-
Emmy like.
Yeah.
I mean, I
Good
agree
to
with
see
you
you, Emmy.
guys saying.
Me too.
I was just gonna say to Mason, I remember seeing that post on Instagram that was from last year, talk about someone said autism is a disease, and you made a quite a strong response. It is definitely not a disease. It's I can definitely understand how it could be super offensive in that autism community. It is definitely not a disease. It's yes, it's a disability, but it makes us who we are. It's just we think differently, we feel differently, but we can still express our emotions. I mean, we have comfortable moments and uncomfortable moments, but that just makes us who we are. I mean, you don't have to look at autism as a disability. It's just it's your superpower.
yeah.
Mhm.
I completely agree there, Emmy. Aaron, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, thanks. One thing I'll tell you last night, Emmy, when you brought that up about the disease part, I had a cab driver on the way home last night that he said, one thing he says to me, yeah, I think my son's got that disease or whatever. I was like, disease? I corrected him. I said, it's not a disease. It's a disorder you're born with. And it's not necessarily a disability per se. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
and this guy was very, he was very, I could tell he was very anti-trans as far as like the trans, as in, he says that they're pushing that on people in the school. They're pushing this in the schools. They're pushing people, kids to be trans. I said, no, that's not true. I mean, a lot of them are born that way, and they're just pushing the understanding of it. And that's
I mean,
and then I understand, like at certain ages, it's more appropriate, right? But this
Yeah,
is
I think
it's when it's more, it just, yeah.
yeah, I think there's some
Yeah, go
people
ahead.
who I'm sorry. I mean, there's some people who don't mean to say it's a disease just because they don't know what autism is. I mean, they it's not like they're just being rude on purpose because they don't know what it is. So yes, it's very important to educate them so they can understand what autism means. It's just a disability that it's part of the brain. It just makes you think differently. You'll have a hard time communicating and can't take it with loud sounds. But it's
Yeah.
very important just to be patient, just give time, just even for other people with different kinds of disabilities, whether you're deaf, blind, dyslexic, or have ADHD, we just need more time. Just give us amount of patience.
We do.
Yeah.
I completely agree, Emmy and Aaron, what you're saying there. It's very good points to bring up. But I always say when I did a speech the other week about autism. And during that speech, it was very nerve-wracking. Because first speech I've done this year, and in front of loads of people. I think over nearly 100 people. I think 80 were there, and they were just staring at you, and stuff like that. But I did have to educate certain things, like that focus was around sport, so making it more better for autistic people, because as we find, guys, every year in maybe schools and sports, we all do all the same sports. We never change it. We all do the same, and we want to make it more better for people who can't do that. Maybe it may be because of maybe autism, and maybe another thing someone has. It's very important just to make like I say, like Michael said actually earlier. No two people with autistic are the same. And I completely agree with that. And in schools actually, which is I think is great that Beatriz is going to become a teacher, because she can help change this. Because in schools, a lot of teachers maybe are there like who maybe don't understand autism would be like they would treat that. So say they gave you a task, and they would expect everyone to know it. What they were doing, and expect everyone to have the same brain to know what to do, and that's not the case. Like I'm not gonna have the same brain as Emmy. Emmy's not gonna have the same as Beatriz, and Michael's not gonna have the same brain as Aaron. We're all got different brains, but the same thing. We might like similar things, and we could all say we can because we're all talking about the same thing. So it's one of those things. But yeah, I think everyone should be treated as an individual. I always say be treated as an individual, but on your own, because it's much easier. Maybe two people may have similar things that they struggle with, but it doesn't mean they're the same. There might be a little tweak on something else. But yeah, I completely agree with what you're saying there, Emmy. I do.
Yeah. Actually, we're in university. We're looking at that, and we're learning to find different methods to teach because of what you just said. We're not the same from, it's everyone like in the class. So because we're different, we need to find different. I mean, there's no one solution. For example, in maths, where like everyone has problems, that's probably the most hated class like around the world. But like we're learning to find different ways to show different kind of kids how to learn one thing, which is the same thing for everyone. And I think that, and it's something that I think Aaron said before, which is something that I find it's very important, which is the fact that he said, for example, talking about trans, that we were born this way. And that's something that I believe it applies to everything, but that is like talking about being different, like maybe gender or disabilities or stuff like that. Because, for example, when people say autism is a disease, like the word disease really puzzles me, because like I feel like disease has to be like there's needs to be something that caused that. But you were born with autism. There's nothing that made you that way. And in a way, for example, in society, we grew up with this like gender roles that society created about what can you say, what is like feminine, what is masculine. But if you really like study this, like things are different, if you see, like, for example, women has to be very like I mean, we let her feel every emotion except with one, which is being angry. Because if a woman feels angry, people will say, oh, she's on her period. And that's really not it. They're not letting us feel that emotion. And when we're talking about men, the only feeling that they are allowed to feel is anger and not other emotion, because if they do, they will be called gay or something like that.
Yeah.
And everything that divides us is actually a part of one simple thing, which is being a human. And that's the same for love. Like, who said that because two parts of our body like kind of fit and we could have babies, that doesn't really mean that that's how we should feel love. Like, I feel that we were born as fluid, like, creatures. Like, gender to me is something really silly. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. And if you think about it, we're all born with something different. Like autism, like even if we have like every difficulty, it's because our brains are wired differently. And that thing can be kind of like being a redhead or being Asian. Like, we're all different, and we were born with like that. And I feel like disability is not really like different from that. I feel like it's a normal part of being a human, that like it's just another way of thinking.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that should be like taught, or maybe should be changed, like break those stereotypes. And like, yeah, I kind of lost like the train for a second.
I completely agree with you, Beatrice. I completely agree with everything you're saying, because I remember early on in school, a stereotype would be like, just randomly people would say, if you got something wrong, that you would get called gay, and that was just a massive big stigma when growing up. Like even if you wasn't gay, that would be the stereotype, and it would make you feel really uncomfortable. And another thing is like mum jokes and stuff like that as well. Like a lot of that would be the main things, and a lot of people didn't really understand it, like autism back then. But last few things, guys, because I know we spoke for a long time, haven't we? We could go on for hours. But I'm gonna go backwards to forwards, like if you guys just wanna say if you have any advice or any last words you want to say before you finish. I can start with Aaron, if you're there, Aaron. Okay, we'll start with Michael. We'll come back to Aaron if he comes back. Michael, you just give any advice or any last thoughts you have.
And I will reiterate something that I mentioned on our episode, Mason, at the end of that episode as well. Asiatu Leowin, who goes by the handle Asiatu Coach on Instagram, said this perfect phrase that I feel like encapsulates authentic education and authentic, authenticity. You know what I mean? So this was the term coined by Asiatu. They said, community is the antithesis of capitalism. And that means that all this wealth, all this money and currency, and all this stuff that's going around in the world, like, all these laws that, everything in politics, all that is heavily reliant on capitalism, where the elite have all the wealth while the rest of us are just here with scraps. And community is the antithesis of capitalism, because not just with, currency, not just with money, it's also a way of being heard, actively listening to what each person wants, to what each person desires. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I know. I know exactly what you mean. I think it's great that you say that again, because last time it was great. That you mentioned that, and it has helped you. So thanks, Michael. It's great to have you on again.
Oh, also,
yeah.
Mason, once Aaron comes back, and I think he is back.
Yeah, he is back.
Yep,
I
right here.
want to mention to Aaron about how many productions I've been in, because I don't think I've gotten to that throughout this episode. I've been in so many productions up to this point that it's, to me, become too numerous to count. But I can
Nice.
but I can name a few favorites that I performed in over the years. I performed in Beauty and the Beast. I performed in Newsies. I performed in Hello Dolly. I performed in Singing in the Rain. I performed in West Side Story. I have performed in, like I said, so many productions over the years.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
that is awesome, Michael. That is
That's really
awesome.
cool.
Yeah. Well done. Well done.
It's fun for me as well, because a lot of us on here have some form of like special interest or even a passion in something artistic like TV, film, theater. And I know a lot of autistic and disabled people have a lot of special interest involving the arts. Because
Involving what?
Involving, the arts as a whole.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Because, and I think it's helpful to us as well, because in a neurotypical society that was not built to accept us and to accommodate us, in a way, and in some way, I don't, it shouldn't be this way. It should be, that society should be more accepting and accommodating for us as a whole. A lot of autistic people found a lot of ways to get creative and to, get creative about, finding places to to freely stim and to regulate their traits. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm just speaking that as like one way that autistic people are, very creative.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Agreed.
Agreed, absolutely. And what was the question for everybody?
The question is just for you to just say any advice, any just last words, Aaron.
So yeah, I'll tell you advice. My advice is, keep doing what you're doing, and we have to spread the word to the masses. I mean, I'm doing that through numerous ways. I mean, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, I followed you, Michael. I'm on actually, I write for an organization called Different Brains, as well as an organization called Art of Autism. So I write blogs for two different organizations down in the States, even though I'm Canadian.
Art of Autism, I like that.
Yeah, Art of Autism is awesome. They are based in Southern United States, or even it's in California, maybe. But it's, again, the way that we need to continue is we need to keep working on our abilities to push the narrative, and we're doing that. And I think we need to continue to push that. The narratives, people are going to continue to push back, so we have to have a counter to their argument. I mean, and people are sometimes barely surviving. like there's still 70-75% of us or more that are unemployed or underemployed. And so that is it's a huge issue, right? There's that, but it's also access to mental health. These are all parts of things that we are struggling with, and we've all have to try to work together on a, sorry, I'm just making coffee. Really push back, look at the stuff that we've seen online. I mean, whenever we see kind of stuff like that, like the R word stuff, we need to push back against it. And you guys are doing that. We are doing that. I'm doing it too. Like I had to push back last night against, this is a cab driver. This is dealing with the public. And this is a guy that, like, yes, I'm from a small community, but this is the problem that we're seeing is like, come on, like, is it really, I mean, really that bad? I mean, and I've been helping, I was interviewed on this podcast for helping autistic Ukrainians, and because I've been involved in open source intelligence with the war in Ukraine. And so talking about Ukraine as well as the narratives that come out of Russia is that, you know, Ukraine is the sex slave capital of the world and all this kind of stuff. And this is the kind of counter supportive narratives that are coming out of Russia, but also coming out of multiple scenarios, and also they're anti, you know, either they're anti-autistic or anti this and that. What can we do to change that, right? So I mean, we just have to. I know it can burn us out, and I worry about people getting burned out because I know the feeling, and just we need to keep doing what we're doing.
Yeah, we do. And you're doing great work as well, Aaron. Like with
also with, you know, the topic of being burned out, you know, don't hesitate, you know, to take time for yourself, you know, to R&R, you know what I mean?
Yeah, thanks, Michael. Some great advice from you and Aaron there. Beatriz, have you got anything to add on to that, or any advice?
I'm gonna, can I share the AMHELP autism mental health guide?
Yeah, okay.
I'm gonna share
Of
that
course.
for you. Yes, I think it will help. I mean, it's for you guys, for everybody, right? So
It's my turn.
yep.
Yeah, go.
Yeah, go ahead, Beatriz.
This is for the teachers or future teachers. Know your students, but know them well. You can't just walk into the classroom and not know their gender preference, their sexual preference, and their conditions. You must know them very well if you want to give them a good education, if you want to really help them. Don't really, most people think that kids cannot understand, like, very, I lost the word, like complex concepts, but they do. Believe me, I know. I've seen it. So don't be afraid of talking about disability or autism or even gender, especially from the age of 6, because you can do it if you mediate the conversation. There are books about it. So if there are books for kids about the topic, why can't we teach them about it in order to create a better society? So know your students, be a good mediator, and educate yourself. And this goes for everyone, not just teachers. Educate yourself about autism with information that comes from autistic people. There are lots of information out there, and not just from people who like are teachers or maybe artists, but there are also professionals, doctors, psychologists who are autistic and have amazing essays about autism. So go ahead and educate yourself.
Yeah, I think we agree there, because more people educate themselves, the more people that will learn. And I think it's always good to talk to people who aren't autistic too, because speaking to them and you'll get a wide variety, I think, in schools as well. You get some people maybe are on the spectrum and some people aren't. So they hopefully will learn from the people who are on the spectrum. So it's more awareness and acceptance for that. So yeah, thanks, Beatrice.
Yeah. And I need to add something more. We need more autistic authors out there. We need more books with autistic protagonists out there.
Yeah.
So go ahead and change the industry, and please give us more books and films with autistic crew.
We do. Actually, before we head on over to Emmy, I've actually got a book here because I'm part of an organisation called the Mighty School Council, and I do a lot of things with there. That's where I did my speech with, and there was a book created. And this is it. It's basically a toolkit for teachers. Actually, a toolkit for teachers about autism, ADHD, and mental health, and everything like being neurodivergent. And in the book, it's like a toolkit just explaining about like autism and ADHD and being autistic. And this book's been out a while, but it's great, like, to people to had even had COVID-19 in it, like just how people, maybe autistic people, felt during those lockdown periods. And yeah, I completely agree. We need more books, but I just thought I'll share my one.
Just to comment on that, I mean, in the schools, like, I mean, I'm in the schools. I do oral history presentations all the time to the local schools, but I also have done some on definitely autism, in my life with autism. And I think more and more it's important to get more of the school kids engaged into learning about autism, like from autistic individuals going in. They're, you know what I mean? That's so important as well, right? It is like anywhere, right?
Yeah.
Like going really right in, and they're seeing people. Yeah.
It's very important we get more books out there, more films out there to do with autism. We're doing last couple of years done really well with autism documentaries, but they have to be really right. They have to be right, and they have to be. There's you have to be so careful when doing all this kind of stuff. But yeah, Emmy, lastly, if you wouldn't mind doing some advice or any last words that you want to share.
Sure. For me, it's best to look at autism as something unique and special. I mean, I was taught it was like something that makes me special when I was growing up. Even as I got to know more about autism in my teens, it's like, okay, there's definitely something in there. I think what made me appreciate autism more was discovering someone who's famous and has my identity as an autistic person was Temple Grennan. I remember discovering about her when I was still in high school at 15. That HBO movie was coming out at the time, and I was like, whoa, there's someone else who's just like me, even to share something in common. And that was a very special moment. I think it's best for me to say, just like, if you wanted to get to know autism, just try to feel like you want to get acquainted with it. You know, it's like making acquaintance with new friends. Just get to know more about it. And the more you come to learn about your disability, the more you can learn to appreciate it and accepting who you are, not just a person with a disability, but a human being. Even if you're studying an animation, look at some of the like education animated shorts. Like one, for example, as we were talking about like filmmaking, have you guys seen the Pixar short Loop? That has an autistic character in it. And she was voiced by an actual autistic actress. Except she's like her character, Renee. She does speak a little, but she's mostly nonverbal. But Renee, the main character in Loop, is more nonverbal, but she does make sounds. And you can see the animators captured the essence of being autistic. Like, you can see her being uncomfortable. And I like how you follow the camera from Renee's eye contact. It's because that's one of the struggles being an autistic person, is having trouble with eye contact. And you can see the animators just capture it perfectly. And what makes Renee comfortable, like they did a good job on that, is she loves like touching the grass and all that, which I think that was really good.
Yeah.
So yeah, go if you want to do, yeah, if you're studying, if you're so interested in animation and do like an animation piece about autism, go check out that Pixar short. I strongly recommend it.
Yeah.
And another thing, I kind of had a similar presentation like you, Mason, except it wasn't like speaking in public. I did last January, this was last year, I was invited to do a special presentation for the Henry Ford Museum in Detroit, Michigan, except I didn't actually go to Michigan because of COVID. So we ended up doing in Zoom. Yes, I was super nervous. It was nerve-wracking. I mean, that's okay.
Yeah.
Nervous means you cared. Even if you've done like this all the time, you still have to be nervous. You still care, you know? And I was able to do like a presentation. Everyone, it was all the autistic people doing like a special presentation for accessibility. I think for like people who have disabilities who come into the museum, and they have like special programs for both kids and adults with disabilities, especially for those with autism. And I did a presentation on animation, why I love animation. And I was able to show drawings and some of my pencil tests. I told them I love ballet, and I did ballet drawings of it, and Harry Potter, obviously. And
what kind of museum was it?
It was a Henry Ford Museum in Detroit, Michigan. I think it's
Right.
I've never been the actual place except just doing the presentation on Zoom, like I said, because it's COVID. I think it's just a museum on like historical on Henry Ford. I think he's like the father of Ford cars or something. I mean, that'll be a fun place to go. I mean, I've got a brother and dad who have special interest in cars, so
Okay.
I mean, I like history and all that. But like I said, I was able to give a special presentation. Nerve-wracking, but it was fun. I also got to see other presentations, and I thought they did a great job. And we did, at the beginning, before we were able to present the projects, they did talk about like animation, like in the beginning with Disney and Pixar. They show us the clips. So yeah, if you're interested, if you love animation like I do, I mean, I can't imagine a life without it, even though I don't animate a lot, and that's okay. I'm more focusing on illustrating. But do I still want to work in animation industry? Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's like what Michael talked about. Like, I like his love for theater, which, Michael, I love going to the theater too. So yeah, I can't imagine living in a world without the arts. I mean, it's like my home.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think it's really great, Emmy, and yeah, I it's really nerve-wracking online. Maybe like speaking to loads of people. I did that. Maybe I did that this January, just gone. I spoke to about 80 people online, but all had their cameras off, so it was easier. Everyone had their cameras off, and it's much easier online than maybe in person, because in person it's almost like everyone's just staring at you directly, and online you don't know who's actually staring at you, so it's a little bit different. But you can kind of get away with it a little bit.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
But it'll be special. It'll be one of the most special things I've ever done last year, especially learning sign language at that time when I was able to do that at the same time. But yeah, especially doing the podcast. I mean, I still want to spread the voice. We definitely need to educate more people on autism, even if they don't understand. I mean, they don't have to necessarily, but do I think it's important to talk about it? Yes.
It definitely is. It definitely is really good to talk about it. But to everyone here, I hope you've enjoyed yourselves. we've been on here a while, but it's been great. It's been really fun. To anyone who's seeing this today or listening, watching, wherever you are, we hope you're enjoying it as well. But I hope everyone has a nice rest of your day here. And yeah, thank you all for coming on for the reunion episode. Might be seeing some of you again in future series on the podcast, but yeah, it's been great to have you all on again, and everyone can connect, I guess, after this. So it's great. Everyone's made a new friend today, I guess. So great. I hope you have a nice rest of your day, everyone. And yeah, thank you.
Thanks for having us, Mason.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you.